Let me introduce myself. I'm Alessandro Pepino, and I am responsible for a center in the University of Naples that has responsibility for supporting students with disabilities. That's a very specific area, and so I arranged this workshop different from the others, just more a sort of, you say, interactive lecture, in order to have the opportunity to use all the time for explaining, for showing how a service for supporting students with disabilities works. We started in the 2000, and now to this afternoon we discuss about the experience of 17 years that on this item. Of course, we are few of us, so we can discuss, so no problem. The most of people are my co-workers, because as I tried to arrange an interactive opportunities, I like to have support for do that. I briefly introduce what is the Center for Disabilities, and after that, after a short presentation of Synapse, we'll discuss different situations that we can have in the classroom and how to provide a support for students with disabilities. Since with that, our experience in the far 2000 up to these days. In Italy, we have an important arrangement by law for supporting students with disability. And we have a law that is, especially this one, the 17 stated in the 1999, that arranges a special tutoring for university students. And a number of other laws that state the support for working and for normal life. And this law saying important things, that the students with disabilities must have a special service, must have a personalized service based on their specific needs. And in fact, we talk about special tutoring that is not a sort of personal tutoring, but is a set of services that is tailored around the specific needs of the student. And that is important because any student with disability has different needs. Because his disability, because his previous story, because there's all the specific needs. And this service is inside the University Federico II, that is one of the largest universities in Italy. We are more than 85,000 students, and there are 13 faculties now. We have schools and many departments spread in a large territory. Remember that the area of Naples that is covered more or less by Federico II and a few other universities are more than 3 million of people. And so in this context, Synapse provides inclusion services. So all the needs of the students are covered by Synapse service. It's a university center where work professionals and volunteers professional that belongs from different specialties. You found technician, psychologist, pedagogist, and so on. And so, as I told, the law states the individual support. So we have to provide an individualized project on each student with disability. And another important thing is that the law, by law is appointed the vice rector that is responsible for that services, because no service works if nobody is responsible. For the law 17 is stated that there is a delegate that is responsible for use the economic support. There is a part of the annual financial support of the university that is dedicated for students with disability. And so we have to show how we use this money for students with disability. Of course, there is a wide range of disability, and we have to cover all the needs for any type of disability. There are, of course, students spread in the different faculties, especially in economics, engineering, also human science, and so on. But with different problems, because of course we talk about problems that deal especially where the course, the attendance of the course is more crucial. For instance, in engineer or economics. There are other degree courses where the attendance is less crucial for technical problems. For instance, the human science faculties and so on. Even the problems are for all the courses. What means special tutoring? Well, our approach is that there is no special rooms for students with disability. It would be easier, but no. No special courses. In Italy, we had some bad experience about that, where special courses has been arranged for disabled persons. That is wrong. No special course. We have to include students with disability in normal courses. Of course, no special lectures. We cannot group people with disability for making lectures just for them. That's wrong. And of course, no special tutors, because the challenge of the university course is to train people to the independency in the works, in the study. And if we give a tutor for each student, the student is not trained to be independent. And that is wrong, because after university, there is the work. After the school, there is university. After university is work. If people is not independent, cannot work. And so this is the guidelines. So what means? That we have generally a problem of accessibility, that is a widespread terms, where we have to make accessible the place where students live and study. So there is a problem of physical accessibility. There is a problem of accessibility of the courses, because if I make a course where content are not accessible, the people cannot be included. So the accessibility of the course. It's accessibility of the lecturer, because the people, the lecturer above all, must be aware that in presenting, also in his availability in time, because the needs of a student with disability are not the same of students without disability. And so also the tutors have to be accessible for students. So, the terms accessibility is cover all the needs of students with disability, in order to make university accessible for everybody. And what I often say, if a university is accessible for everybody, the university is better for everybody, because an accessible university, that works better from a content point of view, from a logistic point of view, from an organizational point of view. And so we have to arrange individual projects based on ICF classification scale, where any students ask for the service of the center, and with the student participation, with a multidisciplinary approach, an individualized project is designed around the student's request, around the context analysis, and looking to find a solution that can be different, because some students have a physical problem. For instance, people with wheelchair have no problem in learning, but a problem of physical accessibility in the room. There are students that are blind, that can move in everywhere, but cannot read the lesson. And we have to find a solution in order that everybody can access the courses. And so we have we draft a project where all these things are put inside from different point of view. We have pedagogists, psychologists, technicians that works all together in order to have a 360 views and to design a project. Another important aspect that the Synapse can take advantage about the voluntary service, the national service volunteer, that are people, here you find one of them that is making the recording of this workshop, where they provide the manpower, because all the projects require works for, you say, not what I will show you, and you need manpower for making works. If you otherwise, it doesn't work, and there are a huge work to do. Without this young man, the Synapse could not work. So, of course, there are a number of, let's say, the manpower, the staff is formed by 4 professors, 1 and 3 other colleagues that works in different areas, because now we are talking about the tutoring services for students with disability, but the Synapse is in charge also the support for normal students that have any type of difficulties or problems concerning the sexual difference and something like that. Then we have, I say, 2 pedagogists, 3 psychologists, 3 technologists, and the voluntary service engineer. Okay, now I'll go quickly. What's how the service is arranged? What we are talking today, because we don't discuss about the psychological support or pedagogical support. Now we'll discuss today, that's because it's my job, how to arrange the inclusion of students with disability, especially by using the technology. Because the accessibility of lecture is essentially a problem of design, content, and technology. And in this slide, we see that is the PC, that is a sort of general purpose instruments that can be effective for different type of support for covering several different disabilities. So we can provide, we can give the access to contents to people that are blind. So we have Braille display or screen reader, that is a software that allows to see what's the desktop have on it. Or we use a magnifier that allows to people with low vision to read even the PC or books and something like that. Or the naturally speaking, that is a voice recognizer that allows people that are not able to move in the arm to works with PC. And a number of devices that generally, that's the general common, the common factor that works on digital material. So the first challenge, the first point to make the course accessible is we have to work on digital contents, because the handwritten or traditional books are not accessible, generally speaking. So the textbook is the first enemy of accessibility. We have to work on digital book. We have to work on digital notes. We have to work with digital media. These are accessible. The other are not accessible. So one of the main jobs that all these people and the volunteer and so on makes is how to create, arrange, manage, and provide digital content. It is not, it seems trivial, but it's not an easy job, especially for many, many students, especially for many, many courses, because we have, unfortunately, that even in the University of Naples, many, many teachers still use traditional blackboard. And this is a good room, because it's very close to the wall. And so even in the last row, people has a good vision. But there are other rooms, even some rooms recently set up, that are very long, very far from the wall. In that case, it's impossible to read it if you to work with, and also because people deaf people are not able to look at the lips reading, and it will be a big problem. There is not a clear and you see, when you create a room, it's not usually, not always people think about that in that room there is a lecture, will be a lecture. And it's not designed for that many cases, but you keep a room and put a classroom inside. And of course, this is not correct. Now, no, vabbè, ecco qua. Ci stava l'audio.
Here we are in my main screen on my computer, and I want to browse the internet, so I will open up a browser. I'll press the Windows key, and JAWS announced that I have a menu. Then I want to find my browser. My favorite browser is Firefox. Oh, Firefox, that's the one I want, so I'll press Enter. That opens the browser.
See, this is a computer that speech, in order to blind, can use a computer.
Now let's go to our
This is a blind user.
community college's homepage. So I'll type SLCC EDU. You notice the JAWS repeats me each character as I type it. That way if I make a mistake, I can hear it and I can backspace. And I can retype it again. Now press enter. Oh, it says SLCC. It sounds like I'm on the right page. Okay, here we are on our home page, and I want to go to the accessibility page, the college's accessibility page. I don't know where that is on this screen, so I'll do a search. I'm searching for accessibility. Oh, it tells me I'm now on a link that says accessibility. That's what I want. So I'll press enter on that link.
Search content.com. Always use this section checkbox option to check press spacebar or plus enter.
So I have gone to the Ease of Access Center in the Start menu of Windows. I am showing you this first, primarily because I said that I use other settings on my computer because I have some site left. This is the menu you would go to if you want to enlarge your text on your screen, if you want to change the color scheme. This is called High Contrast Black. As you can see, if you are a sighted person, you've got your white text, very bright colors on a black background. I don't want to search in Google.
https://w.
That's one. That's one example of how there are software that allows people with low vision or blind to use the PC. So if I am able to put my lessons on the PC, the blind can attend, can study. Okay. Is another example.
L'uso di riconoscimento vocale. Cosa fai? Quanto è lungo? Cancella. Quanto? Prenotato. Cancella. Voluto. Premio. Sei contento? Premio. È andata bene. Premio.
In this case, we have people with severe motor disability, but has an enough quality of speaking, can use the PC. Eye vocal recognition is much effective because he can write, can make command, and for people with special people with dystrophy, muscular dystrophy, is an effective instrument for use PC. Also in this case, he can use the PC. So if my lecture, in this case also by video, is available on the PC, this lecture is accessible. Otherwise, no. Finally, just this overview, I give a look to another technology.
This is my dynamics. I use it to talk, and that's cool. When I look at a patient using my headlamps, the Dynamax talks for me. I like to write emails with my Dynamax. Before I had my Dynamax on, used a laptop. I added to use more buttons to tell people what I'm thinking. At school, I can chat with friends, interact with my teachers, and practice my letters and numbers.
In this case, these ladies cannot talk about, cannot speak because even the areas of speaking that are damaged. But by using a pointer on the head, can drive the mouse on the screen and can use any case the PC. So you see, even the technology has almost no limit. But we have to manage, and this is an important challenge, the migration, the evolution
from a traditional university that still exists towards a university more oriented to digital content, digital content. That is the challenge that we have. And as you see, there are in different universities, there are different situations. In the same university, we have different, some lecture, some professor, this is more aware about technology, some other no, but it's we see there's a daily activity that's our work to create a sensibilization, works in awareness on the professor about this matter. And we have to give support either to the student and to professor in order to manage the digital material and make this digital material accessible. We're discussing also this morning about this matter. We're discussing in the workshop before the problem of supporting professor in making a video. But we can give all the support that you want. We can give making all the efforts, we can create the stuff, but if the teacher is not aware about the responsibility to make didactic material that is accessible, nothing will be enough. So this is one important point. The teacher, the professor must be responsible about the accessibility of the content. So it is be clear that if in the morning go into in the classroom and go at the blackboard and start writing without paying attention that in the classroom there are people that are not able to read and have difficulty in understanding the writing, if you are not aware that this is not acceptable, we discuss of nothing. Well, the focal point that the students with disability can manage only digital contents. Okay? So, we'll discuss now that are just at the 50% of our workshop how to operatively manage, how to Synapses Center manage this problem. Well, since the beginning, where we had practically the 50% of the 2000, where people, 50% of professors to the lecture just by blackboard and with handwritten contents, the only possibility was to arrange the placement in the classroom. So we usually reserve the first rows to people with disabilities, either motor or deaf people, depending, of course. And in that case, the volunteers, like this man, go in the classroom and stay with the student with disability and help him to keeping note. Imagine how is hard the job for all the students that have problems to assign a volunteer that keep note. Because this handwritten note after the lesson must be converted in electronic format. So it's a quite hard job that has to be done student by student that make the request. But in 2000, that was the job. Of course, the problem is how to arrange this service, because it's imagine for many students, many courses and so on. So the only solution was the National Service Volunteer. What says the National Service Volunteer? The ministry, the internal ministry, okay, but the government economically support thousands of scholarship for people that wants to make volunteer for supporting people with disability in different organizations. We go in the hospital or in everywhere, on association. University of Naples since the 2004, 2005, I don't remember, since many years, make a project where the government assigned 40 volunteers to Synapse. And so Synapse can take profit of this volunteer in order to provide this service. And these volunteers support the production of these materials.
Allora, il libro sarà posizionato sopra questa barra. Il programma che invece utilizzerò si chiama ADDI File Reader. Attendiamo un attimo che lo scanner si riscarica, giusto un paio di minuti. Premerò il pulsante digitalizza. Allora, quindi comparirà un scannerò digitalizza. Fatto così la scansione, la linea, il momento in cui arriva qui, significa che la pagina è già stata acquisita, per cui si può già girare il testo. Man mano che le pagine vengono scansionate, il programma illustrerà su questa barra le pagine che vengono scansionate. Ci fermeremo al primo capitolo, generalmente il testo viene scansionato a partire dalla copertina, indice, e il primo capitolo sarà poi apparso.
This work is carried out for all the text,
supponiamo che queste
all the notes.
si riferiscono tutte ad un primo capitolo, per cui per interrompere la digitalizzazione dovrò fare un'ulteriore digitalizzazione, altrimenti lo scanner funzionerà da solo per tutto il tempo e non farà altro che scansionare solamente queste pagine nere, per cui successivamente dovrò andare a cancellare. E lavorerò su queste pagine che sono state scansionate. L'ultima, che come avevo detto, è nera, per cui va eliminata. Tasto destro del mouse, elimina pagina dal documento. Ok. A partire dalla prima pagina noi dobbiamo modificarla, perché? Perché effettivamente la scansione va, vedete qui c'è un bordo nero e va più ritagliato. Quindi vado modifica in
Okay. Of course, this is the activity of scanning for digitizing all these materials, and in a second step, also the volunteer, this video is produced in order to make a sort of training for the volunteer that we have year by year. So when the volunteer starts, he looks at this video and is trained in order to make this job. Here a video, there's another video where volunteer make the second step of producing, that is the scanning recognized, in order to transform the
seguirà sempre il percorso per andare a risalire al capitolo che intende lavorare. Apri, prendere volontari, libri, elaborazione, studenti.
all these things require an organization in order to manage all the materials that is scanned. Then we have organized a sort of factory for producing all this material.
In che modo? Facendo sempre riferimento alle indicazioni che ci ha fornito il case manager. Quindi per esempio dobbiamo tener conto se lo studente ha bisogno di immagini, di schemi oppure no. Qualora non ci fosse bisogno di studiare anche le immagini di schemi, come per esempio nel caso di studenti non evidenti, andremo a evidenziare con il mouse, per esempio ipotizziamo che questa sia un'immagine, ci clicchiamo sopra il mouse e premiamo cancello in modo da cancellarlo e facciamo così per tutte le pagine del capitolo. Generalmente andiamo a cancellare anche i numeri.
Sottotitolazione fatta.
ho questo qui alto.
There's a sort of organization for arranging the production. In fact, we have now hundreds of books digitized. Unfortunately, probably many of them, there are the policy, the copyright that doesn't allow to make these textbook available for other students of other universities. And it is another big area of problems, because, for instance, some law, like law for the copyright, is a problem for accessibility, because doesn't allow to make doesn't allow to make digital the textbook. And there is a huge discussion about that. In fact, there is a guidelines that after the meeting in Marrakesh, where have been stated that any copies or digitization of textbook in favor of person with disability is allowed. It is not a violation of copyright if the user is a person with disability. So if you have a student with disability, we have the problem of making digital materials, so the reproducing the textbook under copyright, you can do that. Okay? And this is what the job in the past. Now we have, of course, a big improvement when people started to use PowerPoint presentation, because PowerPoint presentation make things much easier. But also for two reasons. The first, that I can enlarge the content in the video when I making the lecture. So also people is much more readable rather than the handwritten at the blackboard. But the PowerPoint, it can be used also as study notes. So I can avoid to have a volunteer in the classroom to keep a note, because I ask the teacher to give me the PowerPoint, that the notes for the students. And this can save time. But the PowerPoint must be accessible also for people that have a problem of vision. That is not a trivial job. Because, for instance, if a PowerPoint contains an image that is very smart, in many cases you make animation, image that make the lecture effective, but unfortunately that images are not accessible to a blind student. And this is another common criteria. Something that is very smart, for instance, the flash technology for making video, light, that's a very, fashion on the web, is in many cases is a problem for the accessibility point of view. And so if you make something smarter, you make something not accessible for people with visual disability.
So that means that we should make very presentation. If we add my content, maybe more creative, I can be also reusable and
it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
You have to make a trade-off. Of course, if you know that in general, you know that you have a problem of accessibility, you have to take care about that.
Yeah.
I think, of course, you say I cannot damage people with visual people for people with not visual, and so the trade-off.
And I have a question about
but you have to take care about that. It's important that you keep in account that you have this problem.
For example, if you go and search on Flash, do you find, have you done, for example, a case study just to see Flash how many of the presentation are accessible from now?
It's not, it depends. Because in many cases you have to download the presentation and you should test that there are the kit for accessibility. But I'm aware that is an hard job. But if you know, I think the general criteria, it's not the principle, because the principle that everything must be accessible. But in practice, if you know you have the problem, you have to manage. So you have people with, you know that you have to give materials with people blind. You have to arrange and to even arrange the two copies of the same presentation.
For example, in our library association, the National Library Association,
Yeah.
when we make presentation, they give you guidelines
Yeah.
that you must do in a certain way, because
Yeah.
there is also a chapter for
Yeah.
disability people in the library sector.
Yeah. In general, I think that it is better to of course at the presentation I put more content even by voice, but to make a presentation that is accessible.
Yeah.
Because that presentation it becomes a textbook in many cases.
And for example, is it better to now the plan is not to write paper guide? And when I do a conference, they say, no, you must put a lot of image in your speak, because people don't want to read.
Yeah.
If I have to have a lecture and I want to use for my knowledge, I'm not interested in see image, because I'm interested in content. So of course at the end you will always find the references, etc. So for you, what is better, to have the text instead of image?
Generally the text is more accessible. Okay. You can put the image, but the image must be described because there is the possibility. Generally the image are less accessible. You can put it. You can put it, but there is the possibility to put image placing a description of the image that is read by the screen reader. In that cases, you make a trade-off. In fact, now we give you some slides that Gennaro Siciliano will show you briefly about the general criteria, 5 minutes, a general criteria for making an accessible presentation.
Okay, I'll try to do that. So, what means accessible and what are the points? We must pay attention to choice of layout and the use of standard layout when we create some presentation using PowerPoint. Why PowerPoint? Because it's today one of the most used instruments to create presentation. The title for each slide is very important, and it's very important that different slide has a different title that be characteristic for clear for the slide. The reading order definition. It's important to define and control the reading order, because the reading order that we impose in the designing of the slide for each slide is the reading order used by the screen reader when the user, the blind user, the people that use a screen reader will read the contents of my slides for each slide of the presentation. So if I graphically compose a good and clear slide, but I don't pay attention to the reading order, maybe, or surely, maybe that the screen reader read the content inside the slide in another order. So the user that the reader, the people that use a screen reader can't understand what's the real message that I want to give. Oh, other attention. Blinking, colors and contrast. Io sto descrivendo i punti così vado più veloce. Colors and contrast are very important points, because if I create a graphical slide without pay attention to correct choice of colors and correct choice of contrast, I create a slide that will be not understandable, not readable. We can use some instrument that automatically give you information about the correct choice of contrast, and it's a good idea to use it. For example, one I show in one of next slide, and they are free for use. So it's a good idea to make corrections and also to use one of these instruments to be sure that the slide and the colors are the correct one. Obviously, we need to pay attention to blinking and animation, because animation and blinking, when is more than 3 blink per second, it's very, very dangerous. And also animation that we can use inside our slide to have some effect, animation effect, etc., can create some problems to some kind of people. 1 minute and I show you. Again, pictures and images and chart and all that is graphical must be accompanied by an alternative text, because screen readers can read this content and can give to the blind user the information that other users can have simply seeing the slide. Okay, we must pay attention to what is the text that we are using. No too long, no too short, but the correct text to give to the user the information that the slide, the image, the chart, the component, the graphical component that is inside the slide would like to carry to the reader. Structure of tables, graphics, and at the end I show you in few seconds the accessibility checker that is inside the PowerPoint. That is inside Office in general. That is an instrument interesting because it gives you a feedback after that we have completed our job about the composition of a presentation, for example, or a Word document, if it is complying with accessibility points or not, or if there are some problems that we must correct. So, one concept. Inside PowerPoint we can't introduce the structure as we can do, for example, in Word, but what we can do is to use correctly the layout, the standard layout, and the placeholders that are inside the layout, so that the screen reader know when he go to the slide what are the parts of the slide he must read, and also what order it must use. So the first thing that we could do is to use PowerPoint in outline view. It's simply just go on layout, some new inside, right click on the single slide and select the layout, and it permit us to know this organization of the presentation, not with little slide, but with the title and contents, principal contents. This is useful because we can structure our presentation doing so. Allora, solo questo. This is one of the instruments to test color and contrast that I was saying first. Color contrast analyzer is just one, is free, and you can use, because if you say this slide, I ask, can you read the text that can you read the text that is inside this slide? No, you can't. Why? Because the image in the background is not good for this text and this color of the text. And this software, but also others, say us, pay attention that your choice is not correct. And in this case, also in this case, you have maybe some difficulties to read, because also in this case, we using the image as background, but the choice of the colors is not correct, and the software say us, pay attention to, you can see here, the red. In this case, we can do solo un'altra cosa, only the last thing. Okay. When you go inside the info file, info menu, you find check for problems or something like that in PowerPoint. If you do that, you find check accessibility, you find the error that are inside your documents and give you also some information about how to correct them. Okay.
It's a pity, because this is an interesting matter that should be. Of course, these slides I will provide, and there is no time for go deeply. I think the important thing is to pay attention at the problem, because if you pay attention, the solution, even the Microsoft is a big attention about the accessibility. Of course. Is a personal problem to pay attention about that. In many cases, there is I say, if you don't pay, the system doesn't work automatically, anything. So, the accessibility problem is open a number of solutions that are important for people blind, people with low vision, and but there is still a big chapter of problem concerning this aspect, that many students with disability cannot attend regularly all the lessons, because the inclusion requires that people attend, but in many cases people can attend but not all the lessons, because I have a problem of fatigue, problem of metabolic problems, or something that is make difficult to attend the lessons. In this case, we have to make the lessons accessible, even if people doesn't come. And so, in our experience, the video recording of the lesson is the right answer. So, one solution for making the lecture accessible is regularly to make the recording of all the lecture. That is not this is not no relationship with, I say, MOOC. This is the video recording of the lessons. It's a sort of an approach for making the lessons accessible, even people is not able to attend. And this is another chapter because we consider the lecture supported by PowerPoint, so the PowerPoint is accessible as a text note, as a note of the lecture, and then we have to prepare the video recording. How to arrange a sustainable video recording of the lessons? That is the matter. Because the video recording, in principle, requires an operator, something that records the videos and so on. But this is quite expensive, and to make the professional video recording for all the lecture is not sustainable, it's not manageable. So, in our cases, we had the national service volunteers that could provide a service. And in fact, we have this support, and also we have also 2 videos, but I will not show because no time, where the volunteers are trained in order to, as you see, to provide this service. It's not professional, of course, but doesn't matter, because our goal is not to provide professional videos, is to provide something that is, I say, just the copy of what's happened in the classroom for the students with disability that have no possibility to attend. So you have to guarantee a good quality, especially for the audio. You have to guarantee enough quality of video, because the lessons must be understandable. There is not they cannot be forced for a professional one. If you want to make a MOOC with professional video, but this is another matter. Now we have a problem to provide support for for students with disability. And any case, also this arrangement is time consuming, because we have 40 volunteers, but in the university we have hundreds of courses. And to make video recordings means day by day, at least 3 times a week, to make the video recording. And this video must be managed, arranged, and provided to the student, and so require even some work also as post-processing. And so it's not so easy to manage for hundreds of courses. So there is, when we talk about video recordings, we have the first problem of sustainability. Is sustainable to make video recording for all the students with disability, for all the lectures? It is important. Also because about this matter, we don't discuss only with students with disability. Now we have a large portion of students are students with learning disorders. In Italy, we name this DSA. Okay, but it's a large population of students, at more or less 7 or 8-5%. Probably many of us, if we are on lecture, we have students with learning disability, we don't know that. And these students have difficulties in reading, they have different dynamics for learning. For these students, to have the opportunity to have the video lecture is an important support. So the video recording is not only a support for students with disability, but will be an important support also for students with learning disorders. And this is another challenge that we have in the future. We are not completely aware about that now, because this is a sort of awareness that we are having in this last year. But this is important, Adam. Imagine that many of these students probably we have the sort of dropout in the beginning of the university because we are not able to manage them. Okay? So it's important to make the didactic more accessible also for the student. And the video recording could be the solution. But for a so large population is not manageable by video cameras. So I think in this scenario the teacher that normally suffers the video recordings. We have the resistance from, in many cases, about this matter. The teacher must be responsible about that. That the teacher must be responsible, must be aware that the video recording of the lecture is an improvement in order to make his lecture more accessible also to people with learning disorders. And it's important that the teacher becomes time by time autonomous also on this matter. So what I imagine for the future, that the teacher is his own responsibility to make as I am doing now, because now I am video recording my speech on my PC, apart because I have a software on this PC that allows me to make the screencasting by myself, without no cost, without no person, without totally spending time. And the screencasting is an important support for making video recordings. But what is screencasting? Screencasting is a software that records what's happened on the desktop. That's all. There are many software for do that, and it's a difference between screen capture or screen sharing. The screencasting is a sort of video recorders that copies videos, in a video MP4 videos, everything is happened on the desktop. And of course, I can record not only the presentation, but also if I go on the web, or if I make use the software for simulation software, anything that is reported on the desktop can be recorded. The software can record also my image. Now in this presentation, the webcam record myself, but it's not compulsory or mandatory. You can record also only by the audio if you prefer. Many people are not so happy to be recorded, and this is another problem. Okay, so if you don't want, you can record. It's important that the speech is linked to what's happened on the desktop. Okay, this is a problem because if the video and the contents are not synchronized, it's not nice. It's difficult to manage. So when all what happened on the desktop, I can manage. Sorry, check the time. Okay, we have 10 minutes. So after that, I finish my recording. As I show you, I have this software that make the recordings. Okay, this is I see a recording of 44 minutes. I stop now the recording. So now I'm recording again, and here we have this.
Yes. An open source recording?
No, this software that I am using is not open source, but there are many open source recordings, so you can use what you like. For my use, I prefer, because it's very cheap, and I bought by university, I prefer to have commercial software, but that's my opinion. You can use. Now, this is the credential for Moodle. You know Moodle? You know Moodle?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Okay, so I don't talk about it. So this is the basic system for manage in order to don't miss the relationship with the students. And so what's the final results of all this work? Just one thing, because I forgot to show one thing. Dov'è la registrazione? Ok, vabbè. I would like to show nothing, but okay. So Moodle. Ecco, okay. The screencasting, the video, allows also to post-processing and to making video recordings that could be also more complete. For instance, here you see how the recording of the desktop can be arranged with a video recording and even with sign interpreter. That's and in the case that these materials must be available for people that deaf people and that they are not oralists but they are salient, you have to provide also the sign, the video of the sign interpreter. This is in the cases, and also the subtitles. That is a requirement that you have. Depends, of course. If you have to do this for all the lectures, would be very hard working. If I have deaf people that require this image, now we have a discussion with the National Association of Deaf, where they ask to have, in the case of a student, deaf student, this sort of video. Okay. Well, just for concluding, that's I try to show some of what's happened this year concerning the students that we have at university at the Synapse. You see what's happened from the 2004 up to now. You see that we have a peak here of 86,000 students. Now the figure is 77,000 students. And this is the totals enrolled people, the total population. And here is the first year enrolled with disability. We have, you see, more or less, we have the first year 250 students every year, first year enrolled. You see also the same curve that you. Please? No, of course. This is what's entitled as people with disability. But, of course, not all these people require a day-by-day activity. Of course, more or less, we have a range of 150 students.
No, I'm telling this because it is similar to our plan and university that we had a great range of enrolled.
Yeah.
Not following enrolled.
No, enrolled. Yeah. This is enrolled at the first year. Yeah. General, no, this is a general trends. The important diagram, this one, that we range from 75, we have 198 people with disability degree, and in 2000 absolutely quite a big improvement. Please.
What is your university's policy on providing assistive listening devices to professionals?
Please.
What is your university's policy about providing assistive listening devices to professionals?
University
For students with low hearing?
we have no specific policy for deaf people. We had in the so all the students with disability as an individualized project. I remember that in the past we had some requests where students asked to have individual interpreter. That was a real big problem because they required their own interpreter. We have two cases in 2002 and 2004. We did not have any requests like that anymore, fortunately, because it was quite hard to follow. But because the deaf people are coming year by year, the deaf people less, because many, the most of them now are use cochlear prostheses. And the people with cochlear prostheses require just some attention to be in the first place, because reading the lips and an attention about the textbook and something like that, but no more. Now, just in these days, of course, we make constantly an awareness process with the teacher, that are informed about the fact that they have deaf students in the classroom, in order to arrange themselves to speak clearly for lips reading. Because the important for students with cochlear prosthesis to have a good reading of the lips. In some cases, some students required to have a microphone for the teacher in order to have a special an earphone. But you see, as an individualized support, there is not a general criteria. Tomorrow morning we have a meeting with the responsible of the branch in Naples of the National Association of Deaf, where we'll discuss about something concerning the video, because she requires that for people that is not with cochlear prosthesis but are senior, to have the opportunity to have the video with sign interpreter in the case that we have. Imagine that the people signal are a real big problem, because in many cases that people are difficult in reading, difficult in understanding, discussing, and are not so autonomous, and in fact we have a few, but not because we take it out, because they do not enroll. And I am not convinced I am convinced that the sign language is an important cultural richness. It's not an effective instrument for inclusion. The instruments for inclusion is cochlear prosthesis, is to have videos, something that helps, not the sign language. Well, now we have, of course, we have still some open problems, because university now is a sort of, cathedral in the desert for many problems of inclusion. We still have problem with teacher awareness concerning, for instance, the video recordings. And in some cases we have still, as historical university, some problem of physical barrier in the place. And so we have still a big problem concerning the job placement, because I don't know if you are aware about that, but we have a special law in Italy for job placement with persons with disabilities that does not take into account the severe disability, does not take into account the function, but just a percentage of not ability of working that doesn't tell anything. And so what's happened? That we have, for instance, blind students, very clever, but that don't find job because the companies may have advantage in recruit people with a less percentage of disability rather than blind students. So this is a big problem that we are still working about that, but it's not easy job. Well, the success point, so to have a multidisciplinary approach. The real richness of synapses is a different person with different culture that works all together in order to make the individual project. We are in a university that is much a big attention on technology support, much more than the most of a different university, make individual project, and above all we have this important effort of the volunteers of civil services is important manpower, and we are the only university in Italy that has a so large project of civil service volunteers. Okay, thank you very much, and that's all.